In this final chapter of the anatomy of the head, we are going to cover all the different features of the face that affect the overall surface of the face the most. And this is going to be split in 3 different parts. And so we are going to go from the inside out. So we're going to start with the bones, the major bones that really affect the silhouette of the face. And then we're going to take a look at the muscles and then the fat. And we'll finally wrap this up with a quick demo of a drawing of the head from start to finish to see everything that we've learned so far applied on an actual drawing. So besides the main features that we've seen, so like the nose, the ears, the mouth, and the eyes, there are still some very important areas of the face that we haven't yet covered that really affect the overall shape. And so like I said, we're going to start with the bones. And in this case, I am going to start with these, the kind of like the basic shapes that we already had. So if we remember, for the mouth, we had a ball. So the mouth always started with a ball that starts here at the top of the chin and goes something like this. And so we are going to start in the same way when approaching kind of like a simplification of the entire head. So right now, what we have right here, this is very simple, right? It's like a sphere, a complicated sphere is what I would describe this. And in reality, the face has a lot more change in volumes and change in different planes. So this is what we are trying to look at right now. So the first thing that we'll do is, like I said, draw the ball. So this is going to be the ball, and I'm drawing simple shapes because this is going to help us in shading the actual face properly. So everything here can be shaded like a ball. So the bottom here is kind of like the bottom of the ball, the top here is the top of the ball, and then of course we'll have kind of like the smaller details inside for the mouth and all these other things. But overall, this is going to be kind of like a really good simplification of the area surrounding the mouth. Now, if we continue simplifying the shape of the shape of the skull, so looking at this right here, we can see there's a couple things that are kind of sticking out of the shape. So we have here kind of like the bones, the zygomatic bones that are right below the eye socket and that are pretty pronounced in most cases. So this is going to really indicate kind of like the location of your cheek. And as you touch your own face, you can definitely feel them right below your eye socket. So they are a pretty important landmark in the face. And then the other one is going to be the cheekbones. So the bones here, the corner of the mandible, which is this portion of the skeleton. And then finally, we'll have kind of like the little grooves at the top here that we can see, edges on the sides here of the frontal bone. So they're not really visible in this front image, but if we look at them from the side here, we can clearly see a change in lighting. So this curve right here is what I'm talking about. So this is going to affect the shading quite a bit. So as we can see here, the top here will get more light. It's as if it's a box. So you can draw a box like this. So you can think of it this way. And then depending on the person, this is going to be more or less pronounced. So taking those into consideration, we can simplify the skull a little bit more. So those are all the same shapes that you can find on the skull. I've just kind of accentuated them. So instead of having kind of like a soft curve going from the top of the side of the ball here to to here and then moving on to the side, and instead of having kind of like this line come up and then into the eye socket, instead we're simplifying things. We're just making everything really, really boxy so that it's easy to see how the shading affects the different volumes. And as you can see here, I'm building up on the ball that we drew initially. So we would have something like this, and then as far as the nose and the eye socket, this is nothing new. This is what we've been looking at so far when drawing the nose, drawing the eyes and the eyebrows. So nothing new here. And then we have the mouth here, so we could definitely add in the mouth. We know how to do that now. There you go. And then we have the mouth. Really, really simple once we have that sphere. And now, as far as the bones are involved, this would be pretty much it. So those are the big landmarks. So we can take a look at them again. So we have the zygomatic bone here, which is the cheekbone. And then we have the frontal bone, which is going to be the front portion of the head, and the little grooves here forming, stemming from the eye socket, the side of the eye socket right here, and then into that curve right there, kind of like following the curve of the top of the skull. And then we'll have the corner of the mandible, so the jawbone right there, which is going to give a distinct shape to the head. And this will be more or less pronounced depending on your sex and depending on the person. So as far as the bones are concerned, those are going to be the only ones that we really want to pay attention to. Moving on, we're going to add a layer of muscle. So right now there's a couple problems here, which is why we need the muscles in there, and not that many muscles actually. There's only two group of muscles that are really important for the silhouette of the face. And the reason why I want to add the muscles now is because if I were to shade this and like soften all the shapes here, we would have some like holes right here, as you can see here, like between the ball and the side of the mandibles, I can actually see through. So we want to fill this area up. And of course, this angle right here is pretty intense. So what I want to do is I want to soften this. And if we remember what we've seen before here, and I'm going to pop this up to make it a little bit more visible. But as we remember, we have those two muscles here, which are called the zygomatic muscles, are going to be affecting the surface of the face. So this is going to soften that sphere, soften that connection between the zygomatic bone and the rest of the mouth sphere. So if we remove this, as you can see now, by adding those zygomatic muscles, now I get a nice connection, between the sphere and that side, that face right there. So now it's a lot softer. And what else? If I hide it and show it again, well, we can see now that we also added these this area here, so the jaw. And the jaw muscle is called the masseter. So the masseter muscle is going to be attached here at the corner of the mandible and along the side of it, and is going to go all the way up and attach itself to the zygomatic arc, which is again the zygomatic here. This is the frontal part of it, and then the arc where it goes back towards the ear is going to be called the arc. And the masseter is going to attach to that with the zygomatic muscles kind of laying on top of that. And the masseter is the one that really gives the shape to the jaw. So it's going to be very pronounced in some cases. So for men that are really muscular, or like men on steroids, you're going to notice this muscle here because it's a pretty big muscle. So if it gets worked out a lot, or if somebody's like chews a lot for some reason, this muscle is going to develop quite a bit, and then you'll see it stick out even more in some cases. And this is also kind of like the muscle that you can exaggerate if you want to draw a cartoon character of someone that's really, really buff, like make the jaw muscle like really, really big. So that would be that one right there. And then, like I said, the zygomatic muscle is just to soften the connection between the cheekbones or the zygomatic bone and the sphere for the mouth. So with that, with the addition of those muscles here, we've pretty much filled the hole that we had before right here. And also I added the ear so that it looks a little bit more like a head. So now we've filled in the holes, and we have a much better transition between the mouth area, so the sphere, to the cheekbones. And well, now the only thing that is left really would be to add the fat layer. So the muscles on the face are not going to change the overall shape of the head as much. So it's going to be mostly the scalp, mostly the skull that does the trick. The muscles will affect a little bit like we've just seen, but most of the shape is going to be directed by the skull, as opposed to the rest of the body where you have kind of like your legs, which are very simple in terms of the shape of the shape of the bones. They're just pretty much just like sticks. And what really gives the volume to the legs and the arms is really going to be the muscles, but not so much when it comes for the head. So what is going to affect the head quite a bit, like I said, is the skull, but the fat also. And the fat is going to play a bigger and bigger role as the person ages, or if the person is just fatter. So this is going to be affecting the face quite a bit. Now, the layer of fat on the face is comprised on a bunch of compartments, and those are going to be all of these that we can see right there. All of these are going to be the ones that we want to pay attention to. So in reality, the head or the face has some more than this, so I'm ignoring quite a bit, and I'm simplifying some of them. So around the eyes, there's actually where you see the split here, this indicates three different regions instead of a big one like I've drawn it. But when it comes to drawing the face, and when it comes to all the big shapes, the big fat compartments that are going to really affect the silhouette of the face and the volumes, this is going to be it. So let's take a look at them in some more detail. So this is going to seem a little bit scary, but like everything else, once you're familiar with them, it really makes a lot more sense when you look at people, when you look at, maybe like older people and how their face is deformed compared to when they were younger, or when you look at people that have more body fat, especially in their face, how the fat is distributed is all based on this. So it's not going to be random. And if you want to make somebody fat, somebody look fat, or somebody look older, those are all things that you really need to know. Starting from the top here, around the eye, and this is going to be enclosed in the eye socket, so to protect the eyeball. And those are going to be two big fat pads here. So we'll have the superior orbital fat at the top and the inferior orbital fat at the bottom. And like I've mentioned briefly, this line right there. This is going to be the line separating this and actually two smaller portions. We're not going to look at those individually because it really doesn't affect the silhouette much, or it doesn't affect much at all when we're drawing it or painting it. This is going to be more this is going to be knowledge that's more important for like doctors if you do facial surgery and things like that. In our cases, just knowing that there's a fat pad at the top and the bottom of the eyeball is going to be plenty information, plenty enough. Moving down, we have all the cheek fat. So all the cheek fat pads, we are going to have kind of like this triangle shape right under the inferior orbital fat, which is going to be called the medial cheek fat. Then we have right to the side of the face the middle cheek fat, and all the way to the side the lateral cheek fat. We can take a look here what it looks like from the side. So this is going to be by far the biggest group of fat pads once you combine them all. From the front, it doesn't look like that, but from the side view here, you can see that it actually occupies quite a big portion of the face. And those are going to be some of the most visible when you age. Now, moving down, we'll have the superior and inferior jowl fat. So this is going to be those two little balls right there. They're not really balls, but those two little compartments here. Again, this is not going to be visible unless you're old. And then at the bottom here, this is going to explain also why somebody has a kind of like a double chin. So this is going to be the premental and the submental fat. So we'll have kind of like the chin part here, the rounder shape, laying right onto the chin. And that's going to maintain its shape if you get really, really fat. But what will expand, so normally you'll have kind of like a square chin like this, and you would have that premental fat right there. Underneath this area right here would be where the submental fat will accumulate, or where the submental fat compartment will expand. And this is going to give you that double chin look. If you look at it from the front, you would have your mouth right here. So that would be kind of like your neck fat right there. And this can get quite big. Now there's one more that we haven't seen yet, and this is going to be the nasolabial fat. And this is going to be that one right here, starting kind of like at the top of your nostril and then going down towards the corner of your mouth. And that one is going to be important, especially because it also indicates kind of the nasolabial line, which is going to be this red line right here. If you look at this nice gentleman right here, this is going to be that famous line here that almost everybody has, and that you'll definitely find on people that are older. So those are going to be all the different fat pads that are going to really influence the face of a person. One thing that's important to know when it comes to those fat pads is that when you're younger, they're going to be really full. So they're going to all touch each other and it'll look like almost like a single shape, a single pad. But as you get older, as age takes its toll, those fat pads are actually going to shrink a little bit. So they'll shrink and they'll drop quite a bit. So this is going to mean that the separation between the fat pads suddenly is going to be more visible. So all that black here is going to be kind of a hole now, especially when they drop and when the skin loses its elasticity and when they can't kind of support the fat quite as well as before. So when those are all shrinking and dropping, this is when you'll start to see the sign of aging, like we can see on this sculpture. So that would cover pretty much all the different things affecting the shape of the face that we hadn't seen yet. And this would be all. So there's I know there's a lot of stuff in here, but when you consider all of these things as different layers, so you start with like the bones, make sure that your face has proper bone structure, and then you move on to look at the muscles or think about the muscles and make sure that the masseter are in their proper spots, and that you have the zygomatic muscles kind of there, filling up the holes. And then of course, thinking of all those fat pads, you should have everything you need to be able to paint some really cool heads. So once you have this, and once you have all the volumes with this, well, all that's left is just softening everything. So what you can do is just, instead of having all those sharp edges, those sharp angles, you can just start to smudge or blend all those shapes together to give you a nice smooth surface. And it's already starting to look much better now. So this would be the process. And now let's take a look at some extra kind of landmarks on the face that are signs of aging, but also not necessarily, but just important lines and important bumps in the face that have a name that you should probably be aware of. So we're going to take this sculpt here again, and there's going to be a number of folds in here that have particular names and that are also like straight up created because of those fat pads that we've just talked about. So they are quite relevant. Looking at this here, we can see a lot of the fat pads in action. So let's take a look at the premental fat right here. So we have a nice ball here. This person doesn't really have any volume to its submental fat pad, which indicates that he's not too fat. But then moving up, we have the nasolabial fold, like we've just mentioned, which is this red line right here, stemming from the corner of the nostril and all the way down to the corner of the mouth almost. And right underneath, so almost parallel to it, we'll have the marionette line, which is a line that starts from the corner of the mouth like this and will go all the way down the chin like this. And this becomes really, really pronounced when you're older. Then moving up, we'll have the mid-cheek groove, which is going to separate the nasolabial fat pad and the middle cheek, the medial cheek pad. So we'll have the nasolabial fat pad right here. And as we can see here, the triangle one, the medial cheek pad, which is going to be right here. So very visible in this case. And that line here is going to separate the two and become more and more pronounced as you get older, and as those fat pads start to shrink and drop. Now, that medial cheek fat pad is also going to create kind of like a small bump here, right on the cheek, and this is going to be called the malar mound. It will be caused by this portion right here and part of the rest of the cheek fat. So right behind here, kind of hidden, we would have the middle cheek fat, and all the way in the back right here that we can't really see anymore, but towards the side of the face, we would have the lateral cheek fat. So again, kind of well defined on this particular person. Now, of course, right below the eyelids, we will have the inferior orbital fat right here. And this fat pad here is going to create a groove that is called the palpebral malar groove. And it's going to be limit kind of the pocket of your eye. So this is going to be a pretty important line, once again, that a lot of people would have. And then right below that, just like with the malar mound right here, so we have a groove and then a mound. We'll have the palpebral malar groove right here, and then the lower lid bulge, which is what a lot of people refer to as the pocket under your eyes. And then finally, we'll have the last groove that is called the nasojugal groove, which is going to be the one separating kind of the corner of the eye right here and your nose. And that line right there can become quite apparent. And it's going to be very similar in a sense to the palpebral malar groove right here, so this one here. But in most cases, it's not going to join, they're not going to connect. So sometimes instead you'll have the nasojugal groove kind of like going below it, something like that. So you'll have kind of like a double fold here. Or sometimes it'll be part of the same right here and kind of flow into the other one. So on this person, you can actually see these, jowl fat pads. So the superior and the inferior jowl fat pad right here and right here. So when it comes to facial features, we have pretty much covered everything now, at least everything that is relevant, everything that you'll see often and that will be useful when drawing. So a couple exercises that you should really conclude this first class on anatomy. I really wanted to make sure to spend an entire class on the head when it comes to the anatomy of it, because there's just so much there. The head is one of the most important part of the body, especially when drawing it. Sometimes people will dedicate paintings to it, so portraits. So it's very important that we take a look at all of this. I know there's a lot of content in here, but definitely practice this stuff. Do the same things that I've done so far. Draw the things on skulls, try to simplify the volumes of the face, and of course practice drawing heads from imagination with the simplification tricks and tools that we've seen. I am going to leave you on a drawing of the full head now, applying all the knowledge that we've covered so far, and I'll see you in the next class.